And what's up, everybody, and welcome back to Coast to Coast Gridiron, a football podcast. On today's episode, I have a very special guest and something I've been looking forward to for a very long time. Or at least since I've had the idea of starting a podcast, I've wanted to always have specifically a really good friend of mine, Rainey, coming on the pod today, and going back and forth a little bit on football, and then maybe just talking a little bit about his career. North, how you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Doing good, buddy. Like I said, ever since I kind of started the podcast, I wanted to kind of maybe get established and then eventually have my friends on and be able to kind of like shoot the shit like how we kind of usually do and like talk football like as if we were just hanging out, kind of doing our thing back at your house, back at my house on Sundays when we're watching football together and just kind of have a place where we can kind of look back and our takes are kind of cemented, if you will, and like we kind of we can go back and look on who was right on some takes and who was wrong, because I'm sure we're going to be wrong. And as much as we think we know, we're both we're pretty big football dummies actually. But just something
Absolutely.
that I was looking forward to is just kind of the platform for us to kind of debate. And I really respect your football knowledge. I think you really know a lot about football. But I think the good thing is too is like we don't agree on a lot of things, and like there's always room, there's always like debate with us when it comes to football talk and stuff like that, and you have your opinions, I have my opinions. So I thought it'd be a really good idea, and you were one of the first people I thought of that I wanted to have on the podcast. But with that being said, before we kind of get a little bit into you and then get a little bit more into our football teams, I just wanted to say a little bit of thanks and appreciation for everyone that's supported the podcast so far, North, you being one of them. Been really fun so far. 5 episodes in, only the beginning. I've been having a lot of fun recording these, and I just, like I said, I appreciate all the support, all the likes, comments, the subscribes on YouTube, following, downloading on the Apple Podcasts. I really appreciate everyone. So, getting into it, I wanted to kind of this maybe sounds a little bit biased, maybe, but North. No, I think in terms of local football, I think I like to know a lot about it, and I know who's good players and stuff like that around Western Canada and even in the country, you could say. And I think North growing up was one of those players, and I think certain circumstances maybe stopped him from turning pro. But having my platform, I really wanted to be able to share his story because I think it's a really good one. He was a very talented football player, and I think just being able to tell his story was something that would be important because he's Canadian, just showing that he could ball with anybody, whether it be north or south of the border. I think North could hack it when it comes to football with anybody. So I just wanted to have North on and really go through his career, talk about some key things. We were, I guess, unfortunately, we were rivals for a bit of time, but we then fortunately became teammates for a number of years. So I got to kind of see North's work ethic and practice, how he approached the game. Something that kind of I took from North game that I think is important that I'll use in future years is just the confidence that he carried, and I think that was kind of maybe pushed into him at an early age from his dad. So just having the support from someone that kind of pushed you, that gave you the confidence to, you know what, no matter where you are, no matter what neighborhood you're from, you can compete with the best of them. So getting into it, if you're from the island, if you're from BC, you probably have heard of, and maybe if I guess if you're from BC and you played football more specifically, you've probably heard of John Barsby High School. It's in Nanaimo, BC, Canada. They like to call it the factory around there. And within the last, I don't know, I'd say maybe 15 or so years, outside of maybe Mount Doug, there's probably not a more competitive high school in BC high school other than the Dogs. So I just was curious because coming from an outside perspective where I obviously played you guys for my whole high school career, and I kind of saw the product on Friday, I guess, if you will, the product on the field. I really wasn't a part of kind of the behind the scenes and kind of what went into what made the football program so special. So in your opinion, North, kind of what do you think made the John Barsby football program so special?
For me personally, like growing up in Harewood, watching football, growing up, going to Barsby to watch games as a grade seven kid and stuff, it was all about the effort. Like you seen the effort played in the game. The same thing came in practice. We were busting each other so hard in practice. We probably tried harder in practice against each other than we ever did in game. Because the compete level at that school was to be the best and continue to get better each and every day, like coach would always strive to us. I think just the atmosphere around the school was always about football. The teachers supported it, the principal supported it. You felt very loved there by the whole school. So that was always a huge take. And just like the grind our coaches put into us from an early age, not even at the high school level, but starting just in Kiwi and JB, they had us pulling tires, pushing the sled, doing push ups, sit ups, and not like five or six, like 15, 20, like working us.
And I think something that for me is like you don't see that up in Canada, right? Like, maybe when it comes to the States or something like that, like that's normal, like at a young age that you guys were doing those things, right? And like that's kind of what set you guys apart, right? And having played you guys and kind of knowing the effort that you guys play with and stuff like that, and kind of the like the wolf pack mentality of kind of like we're better as all like swarming to the ball and stuff like that, and how you guys kind of feed off that energy and stuff like that. And something that you said about the kind of like school atmosphere, how you're kind of important there. That's something that's not common in Canada. It's usually maybe like there's not really much hockey in high school, but like maybe that's the basketball team or the volleyball team. It's usually not the football team. Maybe if you're at a few of these schools, like some of the AAA schools, but when it comes to AA, you're usually not seeing how much teams kind of like you guys with the leadership and stuff like that, and you guys are lifting weights from when you guys step into high school, and that's kind of not really an option. There was somewhat of a leadership option in my senior years of high school in grade 11 and 12, but you guys were already 3 years ahead at that point of kind of putting muscle on and kind of like that other aspect of training, not just playing football when it's football season, and kind of getting better. So just um I'm curious now, you guys kind of obviously grade eight's not really high school, but you come off grade eight, you win I guess it's a island championship, but that's kind of setting the tone. I believe 2010 the seniors won a championship as well.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
went over
so
there, exhibition stadium, watched that game as a little grade eight kid, and it kind of just opened the door for you as a grade eight coming into that school. That's your first year there. You watch the senior team win a championship, and you kind of go, "Well, I want to do that.
and
What do we
and
got
so
to do to do that?"
and so that kind of like set the tone for your high school career. I feel like you get into October, you guys are island, or I believe it was around October, November. I believe our grade eight season didn't go too long.
Yeah,
You're island champs. I mean, you kind of have that bragging rights of at least talking junk to us, talking junk to Belenis, right? Those Campbell River guys. Um, you're BC champs, like you said. You go across, you get to see. I mean that team was pretty good. I believe that was like the Coos. Or
yeah. That's Cruz, Nate Bergs in grade 11 that year. Brad Robinson's on the team. Patty Doyle's playing quarterback with Isaac Mitchell. That team's, if not the greatest
a
high school,
loaded
if
roster.
not the greatest AA team, the second greatest AA team, and that's behind us.
And we'll get into that, but and that kind of that set the tone of kind of or like
Oh
maybe
yeah,
just it maybe just like uh was a little bit of like was to come for you guys of just a loaded roster that was the tradition was to win championships around there.
totally. And for us as grade eights, like being like you said, won the island championship. We feel like we're on the top of the world. Well, guess what? The big boys of the school just won a real championship,
A
and now
provincial.
we're back to being nothing again.
Hmm.
We're just the little kids of the playground.
So from uh from as long as I've known you, you've always been a quarterback. Um, Going into that grade 9 season, I believe you kind of maybe shared reps with Brody Taylor, grade 10 quarterback, but mostly played corner, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, that year Brody was definitely the bigger. I was only 5'8", maybe 5'7" at that time. I wasn't the biggest kid yet. I really hadn't hit my growth spurt or anything. So I didn't play much because I was a backup quarterback either. So like I found myself sitting on the bench the first 4 games of the year. It wasn't until Nick Johnson actually got hurt one game playing receiver that I finally in practice made the starting lineup as a DB and then was able to start for the rest of the year.
And started. So for the rest of the year, you get into the lineup. You're playing corner. You're playing corner for those that don't know, a pretty loaded defense. You guys, you had names all over the ball. You had names like Kyle Vallette, Dejan, Tyler Harvey, Chance, Duck playing across from you corner, Sean Arabsky. So you guys go through the regular season. You definitely blew the doors off us. Um,
That year, we actually didn't give up a single point until the semifinal game.
so you get to the semifinal game. You give up a few points. You guys win. You get to the BC championship in your first ever high school season against the Mission Secondary Roadrunners, I believe. You guys are playing in BC Place. You're probably used to playing maybe your Island Championship. I believe it was in Harewood Field, so you get to kind of feel like a pro, feel like you get to go to the locker room, feel that atmosphere, run on the field, and kind of your eyes are like, holy shit, like the stadium's bigger than Harewood Field that I've been playing on or that I'm used to playing. So, um, what's maybe your favorite memory of the 2011 championship that you guys ended up taking home?
Man, for me, you know me, I just like to be the center of the spotlight. So I had to inch my way up to the front of the line to make sure I came out that tunnel right away when we came out as a team. So just like that first time being in BC Place, coming through the tunnel with the pads on, is just like you just don't forget the moment.
For me, or if you're not aware, if you've never been to BC Place, maybe if you're from other parts of the world, other parts of Canada, um, I think BC Place is probably up there in Canada as maybe one of the nicer football stadiums in Canada. It's at least it's got to be at least top three for my money at minimum. I would say it's personally my favorite stadium in Canada. Maybe that's because I haven't been to any other ones, but um, just a beautiful stadium. And as a grade 9, when you walk into that, it's probably so like in the overwhelming is not the right word, but just the adrenaline starts pumping. You kind of are like, okay, I really just need kickoff to come. I really need to just kind of hit somebody you're going to play over with. So you guys end up winning the championship. That kind of sets the tone. You've already won a grade 8 championship. You won a grade 9 championship. We get into grade 10 where you're not the senior of the high school yet, but you're the senior of the JV team. You guys are a very talented roster. You slide back to the quarterback position. I know you're playing a little bit of free safety that year. Going into that year, kind of how confident were you guys that you were going to take home another BC championship?
For us, it was win or bust. That especially the older group, our like the grade tens, our core mentality for the whole 4 years I played was win or bust. To us, nothing else was good enough other than get another ring on our finger. We all drove each other. There was a core group of 12 that drove each other to be better each and every day at practice. We might not have always got along with each other, but when it came game day, those were all my brothers. We put everything on the line. That year was a lot of fun, stepping in, getting a lot of quarterback reps, not having to share with anybody, being in the spotlight. Uh, we were super talented across the board, but I think we let our egos get to us that year. I think
Yeah,
that's what truly killed us.
I think, and honestly, rightfully so, right? Maybe it was a downfall, but you guys have won a championship 2 years in a row. You guys were
Well,
rightfully, yeah,
well, just not even just the, like we won 2 championships in a row, but for that core group, the first game we ever lost came in the exhibition of that 2012 season. We've
yeah.
been playing together, some of us 4 or 5 years already, and never lost a football game. So that feeling of defeat was like something none of us were used to. We didn't handle it very well that year.
Yeah. And for me, obviously being 5 blocks down the road, we didn't have the most talented group. We had probably 5 or 6 decently talented players. We gave you a good first half, but you guys ended up pulling away. Pretty I'll take a lot of the blame because I ended up throwing, I think, 3 or 4 second half interceptions to let you guys pull away. But just seeing you guys from afar, just that senior group of you and Trenton and Cole and the Hills and kind of just how talented you guys were, how much work you guys did put in. We just we thought we'd see you guys again. I'm not sure if you guys really felt that way or not, but we end up going through that year, having kind of a similar year. I believe you guys finished in first. We finished in second, I believe.
Yeah, because we tied Belmont.
We both won our first round playoff games. I believe you guys headed to Mission in the second round.
We got Mission in the semis.
Yeah, so we went to Vancouver the same weekend together,
Yeah.
and we kind of, I think we might have had the same mindset that if we won one more game that we could meet each other in BC Place. We go to IBC, get the absolute doors kicked off of us, and maybe just kind of take us inside maybe what you thought maybe went wrong in that semifinal game, and just kind of the unfortunate outcome of you guys unfortunately losing that game.
For me, like, I love Rob. Love the way he coaches. This will come back to the whole Barsby mentality. You work hard, you bust your ass, you're gonna see the playing field. I don't always agree with those words. He decided he was gonna start 2 grade 10s. They were both good players. Started them at fullback and running back. This was the semifinal game. Cole and Trenton are clear cut 2 best running backs, are not in the backfield until halftime, and we're already down 16-7 at this point. I think the biggest thing was,
if I may interrupt, if people don't know too, like Cole and Trenton, probably 2 of the more for at the time, like maybe this is biased because I wasn't able to see like other parts of BC, but probably for at the time, maybe 2 of the most like fit kids in grade 10, like if not on the island, in the province, like for in terms of like lifting weights, probably being able to like the endurance of being able to play linebacker and running back. But go ahead, North.
totally, like, to add on to that, like, Cole went to St. FX, made a football career out of himself, was a great player. Trenton probably played the game fundamentally better than Cole, and Cole had all the success. He's a defensive player of the year in grade 12. So those players, just like the impact that they had as grade 10s, both starters mostly as grade 9s, both played linebacker as grade 9s. The fact that coach didn't start them was huge. And like, we're not the type to look at coach and blame that for coach. I just think it's a key moment that might have changed the game. We still have to play. We still got to do our jobs on the field. We still gave up 19 points, and that's unacceptable to Barsby football and what we hold accountable. We're going to grind you down, beat you down, wait to get you in the fourth quarter, and you're not going to want to play with us anymore. That was always our mentality. And we let Mission get out in front. Jesse Walker, unreal high school football player, probably the best in BC at our age between me and you, hands down. He took a punt return, 60 yards to the house, game changer. And at the end of the game, with about 1:32, they gave us the ball back. We had a chance to go down and drive. It was probably about 39. One of our good friends, Nate Votes, running a post over the middle. I throw off my back foot. Jesse Walker, pick, game sealed.
That's just kind of the game, right? Like you guys are great football players on your side, but that's the game. There's other great players on the other side of the football too, and kind of the outcome, unfortunately, just didn't go your way that year. So you guys lose, we lose. kind of something new for you guys. You guys have never felt that, like you said. You guys go into senior now. You're playing senior varsity football. You're playing with guys that won a championship. Guys like Sean Arabsky, Kyle Vallette, Tyler Harvey, Brody, Taylor, Duck. Playing with a really talented senior group that has championship caliber, like pedigree. They've done it before. Obviously they didn't win in their grade 11 season, but kind of what was the mentality going into that season that you're the grade 11, you've played with these guys before, you're a key starter, you're not just a grade 11 coming up to kind of fill in when needed, you're a key contributor to that team. Kind of what was the mentality going into that season?
I think for all of us, it was we all lost last year, and we don't lose. This group doesn't lose at all. That was our mentality, and I think like we played 4 exhibition games that year early on in the season, and I think we set the tone real early. We took an 11-hour bus ride, great team bonding, great time with the boys, but we played a team called Duchess Park, a high school up in Prince George, and they were supposed to be the top dogs up there. And we beat them 85-0, and they called the game in the third quarter with 2 minutes left. So we kind of just set the tone early in the year, like we're here to win this, and we're here to dominate you. We're not here to play nice anymore. We're pissed off we all lost. And I just think the drive, like our starting right tackle, Tristan Slotty, tears his ACL first practice of the year. Very first practice of the year. This kid misses maybe 4 exhibition games. Maybe. Starts the rest of the year on a torn ACL. Needs surgery. Plays the whole year on it. That was the type of grit that was on that team.
And I feel like that's maybe a type of bond too. Like he probably felt like that was his brothers that like he could go out there and do that for, right? His family. That was kind of that was definitely like the feel around Barsby. So I remember hearing that back in the day and how crazy that was. But my question is, so to just play spoiler here, you guys go on that season, very dominant season. You guys end up winning the BC provincial championship, a senior provincial championship, which is like not to be disrespectful to JV, but it's a little bit more important. The senior, that's kind of when you guys are more mature. The higher level of football, when kids are kind of getting their opportunity. Maybe scouts are watching CIS. Hopefully NCAA schools are getting an opportunity to see that tape.
Yeah.
My question for you is kind of from that 2011 season of you guys winning and then going into the 2013 season and you guys winning again back to back with that group. How special was that group when they got together, and just the talent level, how dangerous they were, and just kind of how they could have went up against maybe even and they did go up against AAA schools, and maybe to end it, how do you think maybe you guys would have done if you guys maybe would have entered AAA for that 2013 season?
Oh, that year in AAA would have been a grind. There was really good teams, really talented. Mount Doug was unbelievable. We played Lord Tweedsmuir.
Fox.
I mean, once again, though, coach likes to rotate his lineups, likes to play everybody. So it's hard to say what the A lineup truly would have been come playoff time.
Yeah.
Because that group had a switch. When it, like, our closest game was the last two. We played Mission. We needed a last driving score to win the game. We played Carson Graham. We needed a last score driving game. And one player came out and stepped up, and it was Kyle Vallette. And he did it 2 games in a row. We just had guys that had that switch in them, that they could just be a game changer in a matter of seconds. And I think that was probably the biggest impact of that team, was just the amount of game changers that were on the field at one time.
And on offense and defense, man, I think you guys are talented on both sides of the ball, which was just having to play that group was just very frustrating from an outside perspective. Just you can't really, it almost feels like you can't breathe because you're smothered on defense, and then you get on offense and you get grinded down by that kind of how you guys play. Of maybe you're not. Let's not really beat around the bush. You guys are kind of more a running mentality on offense, and you guys like to sprinkle in the pass, just knowing Rob, but that
Absolutely
grinding
horrible.
that grinding style of kind of when you get the ball, you're grinding it out, but then you open it up on a play action, or you're able to get a skill position player deep. So it's just knowing and having played you guys, it's really frustrating just because of you don't really have a weakness. You're trying to find like a weakness in the secondary. Corners through safeties are very good, all-star level players. I believe you are a provincial all-star at DB, so just very talented. The linebacking core for all those years, unbelievable. Even the depth of the linebacking core, like and from call ups like Parker Bowles being a grade 10, playing senior to the seniors that were like Kyle and Chance, and then you get the underclassmen like Trenton and Cole and stuff like that. Cole even kicking back to playing a little bit of safety. Just such a talented group. Um, Being in Nanaimo, I would have loved to be at your guys' home games if you guys did go AAA, and I would have loved to see how you guys would end up doing. Um, I think that would have been like you said, you kind of summed it up perfectly. It would have been a pretty big grind because you would have been obviously playing probably Mount Doug. Not that Belmont's anything special, but Belmont. You probably would have been playing like New West.
Baron College, probably.
Yeah, I forget who else is in the Pacific division for AAA.
Yeah.
It would have been definitely a step up from having to play ND twice a year, Belenis twice a year. Even though Belenis gave you guys a better run than we did, but moving forward, you had a very illustrious career. I think I could say in high school you were a two-way player that played on both sides of the ball. Going into your senior year, I believe that's when you were an all-star DB, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That year playing safety.
probably should have been an all-star at quarterback if we're just keeping it 100. What was kind of obviously you guys ended up doing it, but what was just how confident were you guys? Obviously coming off a championship, it's our senior year. Was it just there's no other ending to our high school career other than winning it? Was that kind of just your guys' thoughts going
Uh,
in?
I remember chilling in the summer. Me, Cole, and Austin were hanging out. And Austin's a grade 11. Like coming into grade 11, we're going into grade 12. So Austin's never won. Me and Cole looked at him and we said, "Don't worry about it. You're getting a ring this year. We're putting one on your finger. It's a guarantee." And that, like, it was instilled into our minds that we better win at this point. Like, and for us, the only person on our radar was Mission. The only team we wanted to see in the finals was Mission. So when that knee call got made and Bolinas lost, I didn't give a shit that Bolinas lost. We already storm rolled them 33-0 earlier that year. They were nothing to us. Colin LaPlante, great player, but we had way more dogs on our side of the ball. And so for us, it was just we want revenge for 2012. I don't care where we have to see you, but we want you. And for us, like I remember that week of practice leading up to the championship game, everyone was licking at their chops to hit Jesse Walker. Like we were gonna abuse this kid. We did not care how good he was. 2,000 yards rushing in the season, cute. Let's see what you do in a real game. And that was our mentality. You're not better than us. We're better than you as a team.
And you guys did kind of cement your high school career, if you will. You guys dominantly beat them, shut him down. Kind of, he was a non-factor. Just like you said, you kind of bully balled him a little bit, kind of not showed him what a real team was like, but you guys kind of, I feel like you just kind of put the exclamation mark on your career and just on who was maybe just the dominant team of that age group and of that era.
I think another big thing for us was, all right, the grade 12s before us got 2 rings. Let's get one more and cement ourselves as the best grad class to come through the school. We
So
could be different. We could have 3 and everybody else has got 2.
now my question, it kind of goes back to 2012, a little bit. Wrapping up your career, obviously, like I said, you had 3 provincial championships. You had a grade 8 championship. So in your high school career, you went 4 of 5, with the opportunity to go 5 for 5. Looking back, do you kind of, is there any disappointment in the fact that you weren't able to kind of go 5 for 5 in your high school career and kind of have that for sure bragging rights that you guys are the best class in Barsby history?
For me, as the person I am and the competitor I am, yeah, it kills me every day. It still haunts me to this day. As a 26-year-old, that was 10 years ago for me. Almost, almost 11 years now. But it still haunts me because to me, winning and competing is everything. Laying everything on the line and knowing you put everything out there is all that matters. But not having that W at the end of the day hurts. And it hurt that it sat with me for that 2 years until senior, until we finally, like, we beat Mission in grade 11, but it wasn't it for me. Because to me, the way I looked at myself, Jesse Walker was my comparison. He's apparently the best player in BC because he plays in Vancouver and gets all the love. To me, I had a chip on my shoulder because of that. I felt the need. I need to prove everybody else wrong because they were the favorite. We weren't the favorites to win. They were the favorites. Jesse this, Jesse that. That's all our coaches preached and practiced too. So for me, like, I really wanted to be better.
And you guys were able to kind of, like I said, dominantly win. And even I have an image of the grade 9 championship when you guys were in grade 9 of I believe it was Cole or maybe it was Justin, kind of a big hit on him, but just that defense of usually what he would just having played him is he was a very shifty player, hard to really get a big hits on. Usually would kind of either get out of bounds or maybe get down from hits, and just knowing the Barsby style of play, kind of just maybe really just kind of setting, like, overpowering them, if you will, kind of like setting the tone and just kind of like breaking their will, if you will. Kind of, I feel like Jesse maybe by that third, fourth quarter kind of just like was like, why am I running at this point? Because this defense is shutting me out. We're losing by a ton. So moving forward, you graduate from John Barsby High School, having been pretty successful quarterback slash DB. I believe you probably passed for 1,000 yards your senior year. Probably had a pretty good touchdown to interception ratio.
1,600 like that.
Yeah, 1,600 yards. So a very successful senior year. For those, I guess, that don't know you, you have a second love or maybe a 1B love, that being baseball, where you just were all day playing the sport that you love. So I'm curious, maybe just take us into the decision of you going to a junior college. I know you had other offers on the table for an opportunity to play football, especially football in Canada. Maybe you just wanted the opportunity to go down south, and maybe that was just more intriguing to you. But just what went into your decision to end up playing baseball in a junior college down south?
Man, for me, it starts way back in elementary school. As crazy as it sounds, like, I remember sitting out on the school grounds, couple buddies, you're bullshitting, you're daydreaming, right? You're talking about your future, talking about the things you want to do. And I remember sitting there saying, I want to play college baseball. My goal is to play college baseball. And I think for me, like, winning 3 championships at Barsby was great and all. And I absolutely, I clearly love football because I end up coming back to it. But for me, I think just that little kid just always said, like, you want to play baseball, you want to go to college. That was your goal. So my senior year of baseball, I basically just become a pitcher that year. I hit a little bit, play a little outfield. Coach, like sprinkle me in every once in a while.
Little BP.
Little BP every once in a while. Might take 1 yard. Maybe we'll see. But no, we were good. We had a really talented team. We had a couple of players that were able to come back for an extra senior year because they didn't turn 19 during the year. So we had a very talented squad coming back from the year before. And we had a good friend of mine named Josh Bergman. Kid was throwing 93 probably already by the time we were 17, 18. So we had a very loaded team. We got all the way to the finals that year, came second to a very stacked North Shores Twins team. And basically, like, I'd already committed to college probably around, I think I committed in June. So just before I graduated. But for me, yeah, it was always baseball was the goal in college. I wanted to try and do both. I looked at offers down in the States to do football and baseball. I talked to certain baseball coaches that were going to let me walk onto the football program. But at the same time, my mentality by the time I was 18 was I want to be drafted. I want the fastest route to being drafted. School wasn't it for me. High school wasn't so much it for me. If it wasn't for football, I'd probably never graduate because I'd probably drop out. It's what stuck me in the school all the time, kept me there, kept me focused. So once I got down to college and I'm on my own, I really didn't want to be there for school. Like baseball is great and all, but once again, I don't like losing. I'm down at college. We're 4-26, I think. And this will kind of go into your next topic a little bit, but yeah, we're 4-26, and I get a message on Facebook Messenger, and it's an old football coach from Barsby, Glenn Cook. Hey, you want to come home and play football for the VI Raiders? And just at that point in time in my life, like I had succeeded in the thought process of, hey, I've got to college. I did what I said I wanted to do. But that itch in the fall. I remember that fall of being at college that first year and like football season's around and I'm not playing. It was different. Like so different. I wanted to come home and play football so badly. My best friend Cole's still playing, like Britannin.
I was gonna say, I was gonna interrupt and say, I think maybe if you being down in Colorado, for those that don't know, Otero Junior College in Colorado, North being all the way down there, seeing his best friend, somebody that he knows is on the same skill level of, I believe Cole won Rookie of the Year for the
And all
Raiders,
Canadian.
but as well as being an All Canadian, he was a Rookie of the Year in the BCFC. A very accomplished rookie season and junior career, and just I keep going, but just what were you feeling from seeing that from down there?
Oh, it was for me, like me and Cole competed. We were great friends. We're the best of friends, but we competed between each other all the time. We're always trying to outdo each other. Like our thing between us was, oh well, how many rings you got? How many rings you got? It's always a flex between the two of us. So the moment he gets that all Canadian ring, what text do I get on my phone? One more than you. So now I'm, oh, okay. I'm like, and then baseball, it just like it didn't pan out the way I felt it should, and I knew the football opportunity sitting at home, the talent of I worked hard in baseball. I don't think I worked hard in football. The game came, I felt it just came naturally to me. I felt like I was just gliding around out there half the time. Like it was just a smooth thing. Baseball, I put the work in. Like I was dedicated to being better at that sport. So when the chance came home to come play football, it was pretty easy to decide because I really wasn't into going to school. Maybe if I had really had all my shit together and like really knew what I wanted to do at that time, it would have been a better situation. But I think as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, like you're still learning, you're still fresh, like you're just getting sent away from home for the first time. It's not always as easy as you think it's going to be.
Absolutely. And then probably like the opportunity too. Like I don't believe you were playing much. You probably saw Cole playing a bunch, right? The opportunity of you being able to come home, being able to have like kind of like you said that one of your goals was kind of the easiest path to pro. Going back home would be able to give you that opportunity of having tape, having a resume kind of in one or the other of those sports and kind of start to build your hopeful pro kind of resume of kind of what you've done in whether it be a junior or CIS or whatever have you. So you leave junior college and you come home. And for those that don't know, the Vancouver Island Raiders, as we grew up, were a pretty established, a pretty dominant organization. We both watched them win a Canadian Bowl at home. They won multiple Canadian Bowls as we were watching them as fans growing up. So from outside looking in, kind of the winning tradition of coming from Barsby, how much the winning ways were I guess at the Raiders. What did you envision when you kind of came home? What were you envisioning of maybe your success, your role, how you think the team would do? What was kind of your overall mindset and kind of what did you envision when you came home?
I was expecting us to be great. In my eyes, like we had talent across the board. I knew a lot of guys, a lot of ex Barsby players had gone on to play on the Raiders. Good Barsby players, Ryan Decker, Nate Berg, Dexter Shea. The list goes on with the players that were on that team. And so my expectations were super high. Like I expected us to be super good. And it was quite disappointing in the first year. I mean, we got to the semifinals, but we were like 5-6, 5-5 or something like that. We won a lot of tight games too. And for that first year, like coming from Barsby and what Barsby football was compared to the Raider mentality that 2016 year was just something like I was not used to seeing. Like I
Underwhelming.
mean, totally underwhelming. Like at Barsby, like we had a good time. We partied in high school, as all high schoolers do. We won a lot of games. We partied a lot. Like, don't get us wrong, but in the Raiders, like I feel like a lot of these guys that come to this junior aren't always necessarily looking to be football players. They just like I feel like a lot of the time these guys just want to get the jersey and the swag and live in that town and be a fake football player. And I think we struggled from that quite a bit in our 2016 year. We had a great core, but the practice atmosphere wasn't it. The after game mentality wasn't it. This guy like there's like it was just seemed like more guys were worried about boozing after our games than what went on in the outcome during our game. And for me as a competitor, that's just like just shit doesn't fly. I just don't like it. I'm not about it. So I spent a lot of my time just not hanging out with the team overly that much that year. I kind of wasn't as close to them as I was for the next 3 seasons.
Yeah, and then so obviously that season, the infamous coffee game is kind of how you guys lose down in Victoria, if I'm not mistaken. Um,
Yeah,
a bitter way to end because a very talented West Shore team. But like you said, you guys were a very lackluster team kind of all year, kind of going on stretches of showing that maybe you guys could be competitive and then you'd lose a few games that maybe you shouldn't have. You get into a game with a West Shore team that has the likes of Jamal Laws, I believe, in his record-setting year. Uh,
yeah. Ashton
Ashton
McKinnon at
McKinnon,
core. That team
some
was loaded. Some
Trey
Mount
Lyle,
Doug studs.
Trey Lyles, a lot of
Yeah,
very talented football players, and you guys take them to the brink, basically take them down to a last second drive pretty much. And unfortunately they end up pulling it off in the infamous coffee bowl, if you will, or whatever that you want to dub it. But going into 2017, I obviously joined the squad. From the outside looking in, I think you kind of touched on it, right? Something maybe that was pretty cool for you is you got to play with some guys that you looked up to in your high school career that you never got to play with, like a Nate Berg, like a Dexter, like a Big Cat. Going into that year, it's a pretty established senior culture, I want to say. Like those guys like Bowles and D. Shea on the defense that kind of let it be known that there was a standard to be set at practice, the way we handled ourselves, the way we prepared. And then on top of that, we were just a really talented group. So just before we get into kind of how successful we were that year, how much fun was that season of just playing with a lot of your brothers, having some success on the field at a new position, and just having we were able to maybe not have a lot all the wins that we could have that year, but we had a pretty decent winning season when you look back at it. So just how much fun was that 2017 year?
2017, like 2016 hurt for me. It hurt hard. It hit football hard. I started to question why I came home, kind of. I was like, what am I doing? Like, it's just all the same. Like, kids just care about partying. Like, winning ain't it. And then Quentin Bowles came back, and I think his leadership on our team made a huge impact difference. And football became fun again. Like, we weren't winning every game, but you got Dexter Shea calling out Morant for a liability midway down the field because they want to win that bad.
In a game.
Like, in a game. In game, mid play, this kid's running for a touchdown, and Dexter Shea looks at a kid on the field and says, "This kid's a liability. Get him off our field." But that was the compete level, and in all honesty, he shouldn't have been on the field. He was not at that level yet. He was a rookie. We had injuries, and he worked hard in practice. Another one of those situations. The kid works hard in practice. Let's put him in. But I think also Hawk being our head coach that year, the grit he installed being a CFL player, knowing what it takes to win and all of that, like we just became a much tougher football team.
And that was maybe something that was a positive, but something that was kind of a little bit negative too in our career is just the carousel of head coaches that we had to deal with, of having one head coach, coming back, having a new head coach, having him for 2 years, then having a new head coach, just not really having any like set. Because I think Hawk kind of he had a very good culture. He was a very good disciplined coach, like where he was stern. There was no bullshit with Hawk. There was a standard at practice where he would get on us. He would know like if we were fucking around in fire or something like that to open up a practice, like if the standard wasn't there, if the ones were up, he'd say two's up. Like there was a standard at practice from at least Hawk, and I think that was kind of something that was tough from in my opinion anyways, that we have a guy like Hawk, we lose him, we have another aspect or another leader in Visa. You had I believe you had Coach Erdman your first year.
Yeah. My first year we had Coach Erdman. And then we weren't sure who they were getting. And then we got Hawk, which was huge. Hawk rode us for what, 2 years?
2 years.
2017, 2018.
And from what I heard, Erdman was a better positional coach than he was a head coach. I think something kind of that maybe Visa was a little bit was a better positional coach than a head coach. Some guy that, something that Hawk did really well, that, what, if he came into the film room and saw something, like he would say something like, that's not acceptable, or like he would pipe up even in a practice, like he would call you out face to face, where Visa and maybe Erdman wouldn't do that. They were more positional coaches, guys that would be there for you in a positional need more so than that head coach role. But
Totally. I think one of my favorite things about Hawk was just like how much of a hard ass he was. Like I think as a head coach, that's what you need. And I remember laughing all the time at practice because I never tied my cleats up. And Hawk would always look at his DBs, and he's a defense coach, and he'd be like, "Is any one of you fuckers gonna make this kid tie his cleats up today? Because I'm getting sick and tired of seeing his shoelaces." And I always would look at him and be like, "Go find a DB that can cover me, and I'll tie these things up for you."
yeah, and they ain't still found one, but um,
They're still
so
looking.
we go through that season. We end up finishing third in the BCFC. Team's probably really counting us out because we had a very good team, but just the few losses to maybe like a West Shore, and I believe it was a Okanagan at home, losses that we ended up
Yeah,
redeeming ourselves in the end, but just losses in the regular season that we probably shouldn't have let go. So we get to the playoffs. We're the third seed. I believe we travel to Okanagan in the first round, a very talented Okanagan squad. We see them. We take them out in a thriller. We get to the BC Championship in Island Rivalry down in Victoria. The West Shore Rebels hosting them being the 1 seed, us being the 3 seed. They get to host the BCFC Championship. Probably the entire BCFC community was counting us out. I would imagine at that point, just because of West Shore going to the Nationals the year before against the Hilltops, them losing in the Nationals, but just the talent level that they brought back, the roster that they had on offense and defense, us finishing third, and I feel like our roster was a little bit more of like unknowns, like guys like you and like guys like Chang and guys like Sean and even like maybe like even Jake, for instance, how much Jake does get praised in the BCFC, but like Jake is more of like an unknown talent. When Jake's on, like he's up there with some of the more talented throwers in
Oh,
BCFC or even
you
CIS.
you don't finish in you don't finish in the top five in the passing categories for no reason every year.
Yeah, exactly. So we get to West Shore, obviously pretty big underdogs. We ended up going into that game. It's basically a torrential downpour. We
Have
ended up leaning on a rookie running back. We were pretty banged up, it being playoff time. Um, our defense put in a phenomenal effort. I believe they pitched like I think they maybe only allowed like maybe 2 touchdowns or something like that at max. But they end up pretty much closing the door on West Shore's offense, and we're able to capitalize enough on offense where we're able to score, get in field goal range enough for kicks or James Parker, if you will, and we're able to take home the BCFC championship. What did kind of that night do for you? Like you touched on before, you kind of heading into that season, you needed maybe a revitalization to find maybe your love again. You had a lot of success that year with Bryson. You guys being like the 1-2 punch of the throwing offense in the receiving core, anyways. Of you guys kind of having a really successful year. I feel like if Bryson didn't have such a dynamic year, it wouldn't have taken away from how much of a weapon you were. Obviously, maybe you wouldn't have liked missing the few games that you did, but how much just maybe did that do for your career of just how much fun we had that night of going back on the bus with the trophy, going back to Bowles' house, having a big party with the team, celebrating all as one. Just how much fun was that night, and just how much did that do for your career of just kind of revitalizing you and maybe just showing like, hey, like I can play receiver at a pretty high level, and like we just won a championship and we're going to SAS next week.
For me, like the biggest thing, like 2016, that last game against West Shore, I finally like had my coming out party at receiver. Had a nice 8 catches for 100 plus. So like that 2017 year, like coming back, like me and Bryson knew it's us. This is our team. Like we're the receivers here. He was the deep threat. I'm the 10-yarder. I knew my role. I knew what he was getting. His stats look better. I had the first downs. And that's just the way it played out. I have nothing against that. It worked. It was bread and butter for us, right? Like when our offense wasn't clicking, you either looked for 15 or you looked for 4 going deep.
And it was pretty successful for us. I mean, there was times, unfortunately, I think that was maybe what kept us from being a dominant team, that we did have some lulls and some drives that we stalled, if you will, or just the Canadian game of just being 2-and-outs, man. Those kind of, if you run on first down and you get 2 yards and you're stuck in a 2nd and 8 and you only run a 6-yard curl and you're tackled and it's 3rd and 1, especially when we play with Hawk, he was a very conservative, him being a defensive minded coach, him just trusting his defense. He was punting in that situation probably a lot of the time. So when we were clicking, we were a very dominant offense, and we had, a 1-2 punch with Rhett and Z in the backfield. What up, Daisy?
Speaking of Z,
a very talented receiving core. Bryson, you, Braun,
Trevor,
and a very veteran group too, right? Guys that have been around like Trev, guys that have kind of earned their stripes, guys like Braun that have kind of, grinded through some injuries, earned his play time, if you will, guys that kind of can take a big hit over the middle. But going into Sask, maybe kind of, if you're maybe unfamiliar with junior football, the Hilltops are pretty much the standard in the country for junior football in terms of winning championships, winning national championships. I couldn't imagine how many Canadian Bowls they have, how many PCFC provincial titles they have, but a very, very well-established junior football program in Saskatoon. We win the BCFC championship, and we know that we're extending our season for another week, and we're going to Saskatoon, where maybe we wanted to see somebody else, but whether we saw them in the finals, in the nationals, or we saw them in the semifinals, we were going to have to take them out one way or another. What was how confident were you? What was your mentality when kind of maybe you got off the plane and kind of we touched down in Sask?
for me, there's another football team coming from Barzy and everything, and that just had to be your mentality going into any game. It carried with me to the Raiders. They're just another football team, and we have a job to do here. And I never ever looked at somebody across from me and ever thought they were better than me. I just don't believe in that. I respect you as a player, but I don't believe you're better than me. So for me in that game, it was just it didn't go our way, clearly. You can go check the score. It's terrible. We get slapped. And a lot of people like to say it was the weather conditions. We were getting slapped regardless in that game. They were a better prepared football team all around. They won the toss, decided to kick, and kicked into the win and scored a rouge on the very first play of the game. That's when I went, oh, fuck, here we go. I'm like, it was freezing cold, dude, and these guys came out shirtless, and we're these island boys here in Sask, and it's wind kilometers of 55 miles an hour. I swear, maybe 50 kilometers, but it felt terrible. You throw the football up in the air, and it went 30 yards to the other sideline.
Pretty much outside of, I don't know, Uppy, Moran, we pretty much, there was a good amount of prairie boys and stuff like that, but we were some BC boys that were not used to those winds, not used to how cold it was going to be. I think Uppy maybe tried to give us a little bit of a warning of how cold it was going to be, but just how those guys came out with no sleeves. And I think a few of our guys tried to do the same thing, but it's like, man, this is a different cold out here than BC, where if you're not aware, it's more of a wet cold where it'll get to your bones, and it'll mess you up too. It'll get to you pretty good too, but that dry kind of just
Takes your breath away.
cutting your face, like if you don't have like a balaclava on and it's a little bit windy and it's like annoying your face type of cold, like it's just the worst, especially when you're losing. You're playing Canadian game where it's 1-2, you're punting, so you're on the field for like it feels like no time at all. You're on the field, and it feels like you ran two like you ran two your waggles, and you're off the field. It's like we ran the ball on first down, we got no yards, we tried to throw a pass, the wind took it, we're punting. It's like I can't get warm. I'm not getting a ball. I know you ended up getting a few catches. You ended up getting a pretty cool catch over the middle that turned into a pretty cool pick, but not really much success on the day. We ended up getting taken out. We ended up falling short of our goal of winning a national championship. Moving forward, we graduate some pretty key guys, whether that be guys that gave us key snaps, like a Dexter, like a Big Cat, like Bulls. But guys that, yes, they like to party, but they also kind of were a big part of the culture, and they held like special teams values. And then even guys that came in the playoffs, guys like Trav and Murda, and even like a Mason Kelly, like guys that lived and died for the team. They bled for the Raiders. They like excuse me, they liked their partying, but they really understood what it meant to be a Raider. Maybe I wouldn't go that far, but just they cared enough, more so than future years, at least for us. They gave, like I said, for a few of those guys that were seniors up until the playoffs, some of the snaps they only played were special team snaps where they had to run down on kicks. But they did it willingly, right? They did it.
Oh yeah.
To the wall. Guys like Tyler and Matt Hill that were started, I believe, a little bit, but Matt is more of a real depth type DN player, especially in that rotation with guys like a Brody Taylor, Quentin Bowles, Mason Kelly. He was kind of down the rotation a little bit, so he had to make a living on special teams, and he made an impact on most games of getting downfield, being a long snapper, being the first one downfield, flying down the field, getting us tackles. Just being a really disruptive player, being a really Swiss Army knife. And I think that's kind of what hurt us in future years to come is we really lack those like glue type players, like those if you don't know, 44 players will end up dressing, or 48 players end up dressing on game day. Those bottom 12 guys that aren't starters, but are going to play a lot of four phases of special teams. They're important too, right? Like they contribute in ways that maybe it's not a lot on offense, it's not a lot on defense, but guys get hurt where they have to contribute during the year on offense or defense, but they're contributing a lot on special teams where if you have a shitty kickoff unit or something like that, and they're like, and our defense is starting at our net 50 or something like that every time. Like you're putting them in a hole every time because we don't have the coverage unit, or maybe you're having to put like more of your starters out there to fill that hole. So it's important to have those depth guys too. And I think that was a huge factor in that season of just having a lot of depth players, guys that knew their roles, guys like an Edgar that were a fifth-year player that didn't play a lot on offense, but he cared a lot about, film study, being a leader, being on special teams. Him being a fifth-year player, not really getting much opportunity during the year on offense to be a running back / like slot back kind of utility knife player that he was. He had a huge play in the Okanagan game, if I'm not mistaken.
Massive, unbelievable play.
That kind of changed. Changed
the game.
It changed the game, absolutely, man. It was like perfect timing, right? Someone that's a fifth-year player, a guy that doesn't contribute a lot, but shows you like if you hustle down on a punt return or on a punt kickoff, right? Like who knows?
Good things can happen.
Good things can happen, man. The ball might pop right in your hands, or a punter might throw you a goddamn out route for a first down, and the offense comes on the field, and we fucking go on the score. Like that shit happens, and like that happens to guys that put in the right effort, guys that kind of good things
Yeah.
happen to good people, right? Like, and I think not that there wasn't good people on our teams in future years, but I think that's kind of what held us back, if you will. So transitioning into our 2018 season, we return not a lot, but we return guys like Sean Arabsky, guys like Rhett Williams, Brody Taylor, Traven, guys that were like all-star type players, guys that were really big contributors for us. Rhett was an all-Canadian running back for us. What was kind of in your mind, just how what did you maybe what did you envision for that team? You maybe taking another step. Obviously, we get Mike West. We kind of swap in or maybe swap out Bryson Mayo for a Mike West, but you knowing that you're going to maybe be kind of alpha of the receiving core, you're going to be kind of 1A, 1B with Mike. We get a rookie named Eli Nelms-Horton that kind of takes over the league as a rookie of the year. Have guys like Braun, Alex Bonaplume, very deep receiving core. We get a guy from the Kamloops Broncos named Brett Ablett, some buddy guy. But
You mean Bert?
yeah,
Bert.
yeah. How did I mean, knowing being on the team, I think I kind of had the same mentality of you. Kind of, how successful did you think we were going to be going into that season, and how disappointing was that the outcome of the
Well,
overall season?
just that year, like I remember spring camp, we torched that defense. We laid the bricks to that defense, who was a very, very talented team defensively. You had Sean playing safety, Jeremy at half. Paisley's still on the team, is he not?
Yeah, but we get like new recruits,
As well, yeah.
like Zay, right?
Yeah, Zay's there.
And don't get me wrong, Zay's not a dominant player by any means, but Zay is a very key player, right? He's one of those guys that knows his role. He plays field corner. He's going to be in cover three the
But
majority of the game. You got deep third. Don't get beat deep. He did a pretty good job.
fantastic job.
He
Fantastic job in
he
that
ended
cover
up getting
three.
a scholarship to the University of Toronto. So just a very good guy, right? Like he didn't get a lot of targets being if you're not familiar with the field corner, you're playing on the field side, the longer
Yeah.
side of the field. It's just a farther throw, especially for junior quarterbacks, unless you're maybe like Jake LeBurge or you're like Wintink from the Huskers that one year, maybe an Ashton McKinnon, like guys that had a cannon and you're able to test the wild side of the field. You're usually probably working boundary to maybe middle of the field, maybe slot to the field, but you're not really working that wide side. It's a tough throw, it's a far throw, it's a dangerous throw because if the corner jumps on it and you're
Totally.
like it's six the other way. You're not catching them. So guys that contributed like Zay, but go on, just kind of what did you keep going?
Like obviously expectations are always high. I want to win. It's championship or bust are always in my mind. And for that year, like it was looking good. We actually had a receivers coach because
A good one.
for the year before that, it was Mark Mueller. Nothing against Mark Mueller. All great Canadian kicker in the CJFL, one of the all-time best. I'm pretty sure he is the best in the CFL.
But he's a kicker.
But he's a kicker, and his secondary position was receiver. And I love the guy, but he wasn't. I was teaching him more about the position at that time than he was teaching me about the position. So to have a guy like Tom Slade come in and actually be from like a university setting and understand what it's like to be coached at that level, it
For
was
just to interrupt you, North, for those that don't know, he was at West Virginia when like Geno Smith was there, Tavon Austin was there. He helped out down the
yeah,
states a little bit and was I believe he was a special teams coordinator.
special teams coach. Yeah,
Yeah, special
but that
teams
means he
coordinator
worked with Tavon Austin as Tavon Austin's punt returning and breaking all these records.
at a very established Division I school in West Virginia. So
And I
continue.
believe, and I believe like both his or his two sons, maybe his three sons that he has, like both are either successful in football in some way or another down in coaching, I believe. that they're both doing. But to have somebody there with a structure for this receiving core with the amount of talent that was in that room that year, like guys like you said, like Eli came in, he's a 6'5", 170-pound receiver, but this kid can outrun you all the way down the sideline. And then to have yeah, go ahead, Cole.
Third in the province in 100-meter his grade 12 year, I believe.
I believe so, yeah. Third in province in sprinting. Like this kid's a freak athlete. If he wanted it, he could have everything in the world. And we tell him that all the time.
Chase Claypool 2.0 probably.
Literally. And then Mike West comes. And I know who Mike West is. He's a Chilliwack Husker, couple years pre-hand. He was all Canadian rookie of the year, I believe, that year. As a receiver. It had over 12, I think he had 800 yards receiving that season or something like that. So getting him added to our receiving core was huge. It was another weapon. And Mike comes in and you look at this dude and you're like, you play receiver, bro? You sure you're not a defensive end or middle linebacker? Like, you play receiver? This guy's like 6'3", 6'4", but 245. Just a unit. Just a big boy looking at you. And like looking at that receiving core, I was like, man, we better air the rock out and air it out all the time because we are deep. We are good and we're deep. And those are my expectations for that year. And I just think the offensive coaches we have were stuck in the old era of you run the ball. You think Hawk was still, you run the ball. You set the tone with the running game. And I just don't think we were a two-back team. I think we were caught in two-back way too much. Especially having 5 deep receivers. Maybe 6 if you really wanted to look at our roster that year.
And like I've been saying, right, if you don't know Canadian football and you pride yourself on a little bit more of that running the football mentality, you have 2 backs in the game a lot, so that forces you to be in a 4 receiver set. If you're running the football on first down, and don't get me wrong, Red had a lot of success that year. Like I said, he was an all-Canadian. He moved the chains a lot. He had a lot of good games for us. But if you're not able to have success, it puts you in a hole offensively. We had a very good punter. So when we did put our punter in those situations where we had to punt, he majority of the time did bail us out. But that was our biggest downfall, was how much we did have to use punts. Just
And like
the offense we had, we should have
totally
the chains a little bit more. And just like you touched on there about the offensive coaches, our 2018 season ends in a first-round exit in the BCFC semifinals, a disappointing loss to the Langley Rams. Ends a lot of our good friends' careers in a very disappointing way. I think something that we really didn't see happening. I think something that we proved over our career was that we could play with anybody in the BCFC, whether it be Langley, Okanagan, or West Shore. Even
we beat them all.
We beat them all. As good as maybe Chilliwack became, we could even play with them. I'm curious, not to really get ahead of ourselves too much here, but jumping into our final year of eligibility in junior, not the most successful way to go out. We end up losing again in the first round, but this time to the West Shore Rebels in the BCFC semifinal down there. Once again, not being able to host a home playoff game, I believe, in our careers. Yeah, we never hosted a playoff game in our careers, always finishing third.
Always on the road.
What kind of, you can take this either way and we can kind of go back and forth on this. What either went right in your opinion or went wrong in our final 2 years with such a talented group? Obviously, we did lose a few of our brothers going into 2019, but we kept a majority of our core players together. You know, we returned a perennial all-Canadian type corner, Jeremy in the secondary, and an all-star level type halfback. We had a receiving core that had the likes of you, Mike West, pretty much the whole crew returned. Alex Bonaplume, Eli, Braun. We get a guy like Jake that's going into his fourth year of eligibility in the league, so he's kind of things are slowing down for him now. He's kind of a veteran. He's seen it all, if you will, in the BCFC. He knows that West Shore is going to be aggressive. West Shore is going to bring that cover zero. They're going to be in that blitz heavy. Okanagan's kind of sitting that cover three coverage. He kind of knows the ins and outs of the league. So, kind of however you want to go, just what, in your opinion, what went wrong or what went wrong or what went right and what went wrong from that group of not being able to have any playoff success or even regular season success, if you will?
Nah, I think like we'll start with the wrong first. Just like so much talent, but we've missed the little things. Like Jake's great quarterback, all star, absolutely great quarterback, but he had nobody truly holding him accountable in the offensive meetings and stuff like that. Like there's way too many missed receivers open in the flats and stuff. He was he was allowed to throw the deep ball whenever he felt like it. And I felt that in this league, you had to have like maybe the Raiders of old had the success throwing the nine ball all the time because teams hadn't adjusted to it. But we played a soft cover three league. The deep ball wasn't open all the time. We had and our coaches thought that like running the ball was the answer to it. Let's go two back and sink the defenses in, and let's just try and throw the ball over the top. And if like you watch the successful teams, the Langleys, the Okanagan Suns, what they do with the receivers a lot, jet sweeps. Get the receivers coming across the line, get the ball into your playmakers' hands. And I don't feel that we were always trying to get the ball in our playmakers' hands. I don't think we schemed up good enough for the playmakers that we had. Like Brian should have been at least 4 jet sweeps a game, at least touch him. He's going to break one. One of those 4, he's going to bust a 20-yard run. That's a momentum swing in the game. I think Mike West didn't touch the ball enough in short situations, quick hitters. Get the ball in his hands. He's a big boy. Put it in his hands quick and early. And then, like, we would have been able to go over the top to Eli all the time and do those big shots. But just the way our play calling was structured, like, it's not Jake either. It's the way the play calling was structured. Like, everything had a deep route involved. And nobody was on his case to be like, no, you need to hit the underneath. We need to build early on, like Rob in high school. My reads were short to deep. And I'd hear about it. Even if we hit a big connection on the deep shot, I'd still hear about it on the sideline. Hey, the 10-yard out was open. Why'd you take the 50-50 ball? And I just don't think our coaches were holding us accountable to that sense.
And that's something that you were used to, right? Like you said, Rob had that implemented into you from like a very young age, right? From junior varsity football. And that's something that, no offense from Hawk, but that might have been something that was a little bit of his downfall, was he maybe focused too much on our defense,
defensive side,
more so than the offensive. You know what? Jake's my quarterback. Instead of praising him so much, which maybe he did at times, maybe hold him a little bit more accountable. And this is no shade at Jake or anything like that. No offense.
I personally think it would have benefited Jake's career. If Jake would have actually lost his job for a week or two, like truly lost his job, like I don't think Jake ever felt like he was ever in danger of losing his job in his 5 years as a starter.
No.
And in any successful program, anyway, that's never the case. You always have somebody that is supposed to outrise your starting quarterback. You need that fender off. And like maybe like Jamie Barry getting hurt, like maybe he could have been that guy to pressure Jake to that level. I don't think you got a fair enough chance in your last year. Like, once again, nothing against Jake or anything like that, but you were the hot hand in 2019. You got to ride the hot hand. He just got handed his job back. And like, He had the bigger arm, 100%. He played in the league long. He probably had the more reads, but the hot hand was you at the time. The connection with all the receivers was through you. We were riding through you. And I just like our coaches just were way too buddy buddy with Jake. I think that's the best way to put it. They were way too buddy buddy with them. They weren't really his coaches.
And I think that's fair too. I think that's pretty much like I agree with pretty much everything you said. I think something for me is like I wasn't frustrated, but I agree with you that maybe the leash should have been a lot shorter. Some games like in the fourth quarter, you know what, Jake hasn't had it today, and let's sit him down and maybe get Cole some reps, right? Because I feel like maybe some of those games that maybe in my in 2018 when I got tossed in cam loops, we didn't the wheels weren't going on offense. I ended up getting pulled at halftime. Jake ends up going in. We end up winning the game, but like you said, I feel like Jake never really felt threatened, and like not that I didn't get the reps because I feel like Jake was the unquestioned quarterback one, but sometimes you need to give your quarterback two reps where like, you know what do we have? Is he someone that like if Jake goes down in a big situation, can he come in and win the game for us? If Jake goes down for the final 4 games of the regular season, can this kid
Do
keep
we,
2-2 and
yeah.
into the playoff type situation? So
Do we have another option? And like I think it's also like we were probably blessed in the sense of Jake and his confidence. Because like some quarterbacks, the games Jake had to go through, and like it wasn't all him either.
no,
Sometimes like he got hit early in the games, like your eyes are gonna drop. Our line's not holding the blocks for him. Get him out of there. Save him a fucking week. Instead of letting our starting quarterback get absolutely abused, we're not winning this game anyways. Get the backups in there. Let them be abused. Like that's why you have backup quarterbacks too. It wasn't just always in the sense of like Jake's
punishment.
playing really Jake's playing really bad. It's punishment. Like Jake's throwing a couple picks. No, Jake's been fucking nuked 4 times in the pocket, and now he's throwing off his back foot because he doesn't want to get hit anymore. And now the balls are coming out. His confidence is gone. Now Jake was a ride or die. Like don't get me wrong, kid, you couldn't pull him off the field no matter how hurt he was. He wanted to be on the field. He was that mentality you wanted as your starting quarterback, but I think we could have saved him some hits, some picks for sure. Like take him out of those games in the third quarter, late in the third quarter when you know what? Yeah, we're down 14, but nothing's going our way.
Yeah.
And it's clear cut. Like our defense is holding us in, but guess what? Offense has gone 3-and-out the last 10 possessions in a row. Why are we leaving our starting quarterback to get absolutely demolished? Because we're playing the Okanagan Sun and they got 2 all Canadians up front, and we got freaking
Winger.
Braden Winger playing right guard. Like I
Yeah.
love Winger and all, but he ain't no all Canadian guard, and he's a little undersized for the position as well. So
And probably something that was a big factor for us going against the other competitive teams in the league is we were probably the more smaller fronts a lot of those years, other than the 2017 year when we had guys like Kells and Mazzy and Bulls and stuff like that. A little bit of a bigger unit, Big Cat. Um,
yeah,
After those years, we kind of turned into a little bit more of a smaller front, only really having like guys like Brody, Reed, if you will, his rookie year. But even Regan got a little bit smaller after he came out here. Um, for me, the thing like play call wise, kind of like you said about not all being on Jake, right? Is like the easy things that we'd implement in a practice, but never for whatever reason would call them like the RPOs or like you said, like Braun should have been having 4 or 5 jet sweeps a game, but even like switch up like different formations, right? Like don't always keep Eli in the field. Like put him in the slot and let Eli run a jet sweep. Like let him use his speed, right? I believe we in a spring camp we had you in the slot run a jet sweep. You playing quarterback before have a little Jim Bob, a little slot jet sweep, and then you pass the ball to a backside receiver running a post. We threw that in a spring camp for like an 80-yard touchdown and never called it again. Or maybe we called
no,
it one time and shied away from it. But it's like, why did we like and like for me, like the RPO situation, like at the time that was kind of becoming a big thing in the college game, it was already becoming a big thing, but the NFL game, it was already kind of taking over, where in even video games, you can kind of start to throw the RPOs at that time. Like there was options to throw RPOs in a video game. And what we kind of joked about, like when we were playing, is like Todd would kind of base his playbook off Madden or whatever. So it's like it's so frustrating that we never got to like the layups like that. And even like knowing how far off and how soft the coverage is, like why didn't we just run like unders and in breakers at 5 yards, quick slants like that? We never took advantage of the underneath, and it was always just, and like that was kind of the unfortunate thing too, is like in Jake's year of, you know what, let's run 94, and Jake looked to the 9. Not him, maybe not saying that, but when you're calling 94, you're kind of like the slot, the for those that don't know, the halfback's probably going to sit 5 to 7 yards off. He's probably going to backpedal a good 3-4 yards. He's going to be right in your kind of as a slot. Unless you get a ton of separation, it's a super like hard throw to go to that hook into the slot there, especially when you're in a 2-back set and it's 2x2 and you only have 4 wides and the half's kind of pretty much focused on you. It's so hard to get a lot of separation. So it's like Jake's already built into, you know what, I hear 94, I hear 93, I hear these things. I'm probably looking to the 9, because that's what you're basically saying to me right now is look there. If you don't have it, hopefully the 4 is there or whatever. Like we didn't really have time to look at number 2. It was kind of number 1, you're probably gonna get pressure and you better get rid of it, or maybe you had a second to get to number 2. But we obviously finish out a pretty disappointing career in terms of winning championships, in terms of maybe what we're used to seeing when it came to the Raiders, of growing up watching them win Canadian Bowls and all that things. But you had a very successful end of your career. You were a 2019 All-Canadian. I won't say I'll take a little bit of the credit, but I will give myself a little bit of a shout out. I would like to say that I went 4-1 as a starter that year. So I threw you 5 games worth of stats. Not all of them, but I'll take, I guess, 5 games worth of credit. You had
I missed 2 games. So.
Yeah, no kidding. You definitely could have had more stats, more on your resume there. Very successful end of your career, not from the team, but from an individual standpoint, where maybe you felt in 2017 and 2018 you probably should have been all-Canadian, all-star type level player, not getting that recognition. You finally getting that recognition of being an all-Canadian in our last year, but not having the team success. I remember being up in an Okanagan game. We're playing our 3rd-string quarterbacks in. I believe you had 150 yards and I want to say a touchdown or something like that, with Mr. or Coach Dobie, whatever you want to call him, in the stands, earning yourself a scholarship to the University of Manitoba after that 2019 campaign. After the 2019 campaign, obviously, if you're not aware, you're probably living under a rock. Obviously, we get into 2020 and COVID hits and we're put into a worldwide pandemic and we're forced to live at home for what we were told for 2 weeks, and it ends up being like 3 months. Things were a lot different up in Canada compared to the States, especially in terms of sports. That was not really a thing up here. Whether that be pro hockey, pro basketball, pro football, the collegiate level, the junior level, there was no sports. I believe maybe even the high school level. I'm not.
Yeah, nothing. There was nothing that year.
No sports in Canada. There was a lot stricter rules, a lot different protocol up here in Canada. So that unfortunately was taken away from you a little bit. I'm not really sure how much you want to go into, maybe like if maybe you ever thought about going back, but just from me, something that's probably a little bit unfair that when I look at your situation is I was able to have a little bit more beat, like after 2019, I knew that was the end of my career. I had closed the chapter. I had known that when I walked off the field, kind of maybe why I stayed in my pads so long down in West Shore is I knew that I would never put pads on again the way that I just did. I would never strap up the football helmet. I would never play football the way that I had done just for the past 10 years. Uh, Unlike any other sport, you can kind of play adult beer league hockey, you can play rec league basketball, you can play beer league softball. Football is not like that where you can't just go rent football pads, rent a helmet and play football. I had known that that was the last time I would strap up shoulder pads. That was the last time I would play in a football in a real tackle football game. Something that's I think super unfair for you is you weren't able to have that kind of satisfaction, that closure, if you will, of knowing like, hey, like I gave it my all, if you will. Maybe not. That's something that maybe not. I was able to close the chapter, but I know that's something that that probably struggles with you. But just what what kind of what comes into your mind when thinking of that opportunity that was kind of taken away from you in COVID, and kind of maybe just how excited, however you want to go with this question, but just take us into kind of that decision of what went into going to Manitoba, how frustrated you were when you heard about COVID, and then just kind of how maybe like knowing how much I know you love football, how heartbreaking that was to just have that opportunity of, I know that that was something that you had set in your heart, something that you were confident in yourself, is that you were going to go and get yourself into an opportunity of maybe a CFL combine and hopefully maybe being drafted in the CFL one day. So maybe just take us into how, like, your overall, how you felt, how heartbreaking that situation was for you.
At first, like when it first hit, the first year, like as it was going on, it just started to become a thing. Like, okay, no football right now, but like there was the whole push to like get us extra eligibility for CIS and stuff like that. They were trying to push U Sports, so athletes that would have only had 1 year left would get their 2 years of eligibility and stuff like that. So I see an opportunity still. I was like, okay, cool. Like this is still going to be a thing. And probably what we spent a solid 4 months of in true in COVID. I'd say probably that next December around 2021 when it became time to actually start like prepping for Manitoba and stuff. I really hadn't heard from them in a long time. And I just started to like the aches and pains, being a football player, like you start to feel the aches and pains of your body. And I just had to ask myself the question, like, man, do I want to continue to put my body through this for what, 70,000 a year? Like, I really had to ask myself, like, yeah, I'd love to be a professional football player. Don't get me wrong. Like, that's the dream of every young kid growing up that plays football and stuff. Like, it would have been so sweet. But up here in Canada, I just didn't feel the money's worth what I've already put my body through to get to maybe that opportunity. Like, to put that extra 100 miles on the body of playing football for maybe a 2, 3 year career, maybe play special teams, like just the way politics works in football and the way they look at American kids compared to us, like no matter how good you are, they're still gonna go with the American. You can create as much separation as you're here. And I knew that. And that just for me, it just became like, do I want to put my body through this or do I want to continue doing football another way? And that's kind of where I started looking towards coaching. So that next following fall, I got into coaching, and it just became such an easy. Like you said, I never really truly got the satisfaction of being like, hey, I'm never gonna do this again. But for me, it's always been about that compete level and being a coach again. I get to compete. I might not be on the field competing, but I compete through all the kids I'm coaching. I get that satisfaction of on game day, watching them work super hard, and what I've instilled into them shows up on game day. It's a different type of really good feeling I would have to go with.
Yeah, man. Like, and I kind of, I get to, I coached a little bit at NDSS, my alma mater high school, a little bit. So I get to kind of share that satisfaction with you of kind of seeing how much like joy and satisfaction that can come with coaching when maybe not so much for me because our high school team hasn't been so successful, but when a kid does make a good play or like something that like pays off, that like maybe they're listening to you or like they show some growth, it's like it's such a good feeling of just like giving back to football, something the game that we love, right? Something that it's done so much for us. Um and maybe just to close it out, man, I just like I said, I when I started the podcast, I knew I wanted to have you on, share your story a little bit. People will probably uh call me biased or whatever because I definitely consider you one of my best friends in life. But um, I, I've played against the Chase Claypools. I've got to see Tyson Philpotts, Jalen Philpotts play live. Um, Whether you want to call it bias or whatever, I think you could lace it up with the best of them, buddy. Um, I just want you to know that I think you were a really special player, and I think you should look back on your career with just the most utmost respect for you, and like kind of look back and know that the hard work paid off, right? Like you did go to a hardworking high school, you got to kind of get that reward, even though maybe your post-secondary career and team-wise didn't go maybe the way we wanted to, but individually, I think people know, especially in the BCFC, that North Rainey was a bad dude, and maybe the stats don't show it, but you could probably hack it with a lot of the great receivers that have came through the Raider program, through BCFC program, and just junior history probably in general. So had a really good time chatting about your career, buddy, kind of introducing my audience to you. Anything you want to kind of say to just close it out here?
Oh man, I just appreciate you so much for having me on the podcast to put my story out there. Football for me has always just been a passion. Like my dad never wanted me to play this game. It's the one game he didn't want me to strap up and play. And ever since I was little, one story I got for everybody. The first time I ever played football, first day I got my gear, I went home and I slept with my shoulder pads and helmet all stacked nicely in my bed beside me. And that's pretty much when I knew like this game, that feeling of the first time you ever put shoulder pads on to the last time you ever take them off. There's no other feeling. There's no different. Like for hockey players, it's probably the same when they lace them up and the last time they lace them up, right? Like the joy I got from playing football and the joy I get to continue on from coaching and the friendships I've made from the sport are like no other.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back. Sorry to interrupt. I hope you guys enjoy that part of the interview or that part of the episode with North, excuse me. What originally was planned to be uploaded as one longer episode is going to be uploaded into a two-parter now. First part being my interview with my good friend North, getting to learn about North, just share a little bit about his football journey from the beginning all the way up until the end. And then we planned on getting into an AFC East roundtable discussion. Because of how long we went, I decided to upload them in two parts. So appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you guys enjoyed that episode with North, stay tuned because there will be more. But if you guys did like the type of content that I did with North, where it was a little bit of our junior football days, a little bit more of an interview style where we talk about maybe his beginning in football, that kind of thing. Let me know in the comments down below, and I can try to line up a few more guests like that, a few more maybe not pro CFLers, but maybe some more of my junior teammates, maybe even some junior players that I played against, that type of thing. Let me know down below if you guys enjoyed that type of content, and I can definitely try to get more of that on the channel here. So moving forward into the next part of this episode, me and North continue our conversation, taking into our AFC East, our two favorite NFL teams, North being a Patriot fan, myself being a Buffalo Bills fan. We are also joined on this episode by soon to be announced part-time co-host of the podcast, Miami Dolphins fan. So we have 3/4 of the divisions represented in this discussion. We go for maybe about 2 hours. That's why I decided to upload this in a two-parter. just because of how long we ended up going in that discussion. Obviously, a lot of news recently with the Aaron Rodgers rumors, Jalen Ramsey going to Miami, and the Bills. Obviously, I know the Bills are still going to stay relevant, but that's a little bit of a narrative. Can the Bills stay atop the AFC East with the teams around the division loading up around the conference, that kind of thing? So stick around for that episode. I think you guys will enjoy that. If you guys enjoyed this episode with North, it only gets better as we get into our AFC East roundtable discussion. And stay tuned because you'll be seeing probably a lot of North, maybe more around NFL season. North's not the biggest CFL fan, but I'm trying to slowly trying to slowly get him to be more of a CFL fan, but you'll definitely be seeing more of North around NFL season and a lot maybe more than I would say. But moving forward, unnamed special guest to be announced on the next episode. So stay tuned. I appreciate you guys for supporting the podcast so far. All the likes, all the downloads of the podcast have been super duper so far. That being said, continue all the support, continue liking the videos if you can, commenting on the videos, sharing if you don't mind, subscribing to the YouTube, download the Apple Podcast episodes, follow the channel, all that sort of good stuff. And I appreciate you guys for tuning into this episode of Coast to Coast Gridiron, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Thank you.